It's Friday. It's 5 o'clock. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today I'm going to do this lovely little scene from the Van Buren County Fairgrounds, the sail bar next to it. And we hadn't done a cloud picture for a while, so I think I wanted to do that. So it's lovely afternoon light. It was something I didn't have a chance to, I think we had already turned our paintings in and then I saw this, so it was a little too late. But I like it. There are a couple of problems though. If you notice, that creates a tangent with the fence there, that utility pole. And the road back here creates a tangent with the fence. So I'm going to adjust those things. And the other thing is this lovely backlit cloud. I love clouds at that time of day. But isn't it fun if you notice that this shape is almost a Rorschach of that shape? And I can't tell you how many times I see things like that. It's stunning how that happens. But there's a little bit of a gap in there, and I think we could improve it by bringing the one over the other, or that behind this. And then we have over here this desperately uninteresting structure. I think what I want to do is crop it maybe a little more like that, and just use that as a pendant for this, and that is a echo of that. So there we are, and I'm gonna, of course, look for my key horizontals, which will be about a third of the way up the page. Just lightly put that in. Then my key verticals could be that pole, could be these things, doesn't matter. I think I want them to come, they're not quite to half, so they're going to be inside a box that's, let's say, in this vicinity, and comes down to about 1, 2, 3, 4, pretty low. The other thing I love this little stair step. It just leads us back into the background there. So that's going to occur in here. And you'll see it when I get a little darker. The tree is going to occur, comes almost 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 3/4 of the way over. That is just about level with that, but not quite as high. So it has to go down to about there. Or, again, I don't want to do things that create tangents that way. So that veil is actually kind of a stingy little one. Again, I don't like to draw tree shapes too specifically because I like to paint them. So, hi, Becky. So, Becky did some fabulous paintings last week at the Burlington Plein Air, another event like this one. Becky, you should consider doing Van Buren Plein Air on a regular basis. It's a fun one. So the other thing I like is this bale leans this way. That bale is almost straight. That's got a little bit of a pitch. This has got a lot of pitch, a little bit of pitch. So all those things keep them from looking like two neatly stacked marshmallows or something. And I will darken up all these. Well, I like this like that. Notice this line and that line are not the same. You can see a little bit of the front of this one, a little bit of the top of that one. And remember, when the tractor or whoever puts these things down on the ground, they have a tendency to squash and lose their perfectly cylindrical shape. So don't make them absolutely perfectly cylindrical. Make them a little thicker in their middles, a little tighter on their ends, and just look for any kind of irregularity that you can find, and that will make them look realistic. Now the fence, I'm going to make the road there, so I'm going to bring the fence up above the level of the road. The other thing I like is the top is straight, the bottom is not straight. You gotta love that. What is it, 3 boards? It could be as many boards as you want. Then the pole, I'm going to bring in a bit and put a slight pitch to it. Now there's a camper back here, so I'm not going to show a whole lot of road. Just enough to say road. And there is a second utility pole, but we're going to paint the lines, not the poles proper. That one goes out. There's another one back here a little bit. So let's darken up some of these lines. Whoop. A little notification from the BBC. Some oddball species discovered somewhere. There's a transformer over here. It's another rectangle. How many boards do we need to say fence? Yeah, now if I can make that road disappear behind that fence, that's a good thing. And then this trailer, which is essentially a kind of a rectangle with smaller rectangles that come out from it because it's one of those expandable sides type campers. Let's put a pole behind it. The pole is in front of it, but we'll put a pole behind it. And I'm going to freehand those clouds. I want to try and freehand my trees too. So I think that needs to be a little higher. And this needs to be a little flatter. That actually needs to come back here. This bale would be too narrow. I mean, unless they were made from 2 different balers, they should be relatively uniform. Now there's some muddy area. Comes down here like so. Clump of grass or mud, who knows. There, I think that's about as much drawing as I need to do. You will see more of it when I do it. Or when I paint it, in other words. So, step down, step up. And then that shadow, I am going to bring that shadow across from the pole and the trees. My transformer is way too big for the distance I'm portraying. Okay, so let's plan out the washes. So as always, I have to do, what do we got going here? There we go. So is this still in frame? Yeah. I'm moving things by accident. 11 by 15 sheet of paper, looks like Saunders Waterford. I'm going to be using my squirrel mops, one or both. I'll start with this one. There are 4 boards in there. Okay, let's get that straightened out. Now, I'm going to be very gently. Oh, hi, Shelley. The blues up here in the sky. So I'm going to talk now about the colors I'm going to modify. The blue in the shadow, to give it some oomph, there's a lovely creamy character that afternoon skies have. But still in all, I want the cloud to sit forward of the sky itself. So I'm going to use a greener blue for the sky, getting creamier with maybe a little bit of yellow ochre or something. I'm going to use more of a blue-violet in the cloud shadow, meaning I have to mix up quite a bit of that. So a greenish blue is going to involve a fair amount of water, which, boy, you sure can't see that, can you? Let's go to our green blue, which is turquoise, into which we'll run a runny mix here, into which I will smuggle some yellow ochre as I get further down, and that will lead me into the yellow ochre that I need to underpaint the bales and even that. That probably I'm going to have to put a little something in because I don't want it to be white because I do need some brights in places, there in particular, and on the rims of the clouds too. So a little bit of yellow ochre into this already. Shoot, maybe that's getting too green. Maybe I should do cerulean and a bit of yellow ochre. That's the ticket. So, hi, John. How are you? Now, I also have to have mixed up the more violet blue. So I'm going to go for ultramarine or, oh, that looks like a lot. Maybe some little bit of cad red in that to get a more violet. And I want consistencies that run about the same rate because it's not terribly darker than the surrounding sky. The thing that kind of separates it is the rim lighting. So I'm going to freehand it. I'm going to try to keep that shape, leave some whites, by putting in the purplish blue first, then coming with this, occasionally kiss that and mingle with it, and then go to the yellow ochre and then down into some yellow. Well, I'm going to need to put some blue in those whites too, aren't I? It's just going to be one of those on-the-go kind of things. So, squeeze a lot of the water out. I'm going to... Oh, redder. I need redder. Purplier. These are the shadow shapes inside the cloud. I can get into the tree, that's not a big deal. Because, and I need these shapes to be irregular and not mechanical looking. There's one going off the page over here in a delicious way. Okay. Rinse, squeeze it out, get into the greenish blue. I'm going to accidentally touch some of the white areas in here, or some of the blue areas, so that I get, hopefully, a plausible rim lighting on these clouds. And I may have to modify them. This is where I need to rinse that and get right into the yellow ochre. Oh boy, that's turning olive. I don't want olive. Let's get rid of that. Work quickly, John, work quickly. Here we go, that's better. All right. Gotta come out of that and get this, go right into the tree, right into the tree. Because that sky, I need to have that green come down into it, a bluish green. Keep working while it's wet. Now, I can get some of the blue in here. Why am I doing that? Okay, because watch the fence, don't get the fence, John. The side of that camper, not the top, but the sides and the bottom, are a cool blue. The fence is a cool blue, but I'm going to try to leave some white on parts of it. Now, into that yellow ochre. And again, these are runny mixes. Tom, how you doing? Looking forward to catching up with you, hopefully at Bluff Strokes. Now, I'm painting over what are the very light spots on those bales. But this one I'm going to miss and that one I'm going to miss, if I'm careful. Because when I surround these with those darks, they're going to look darker. So let's get a little yellower. Let's get in some, maybe some burnt sienna even, fair amount of water. So this is the Holy Mess stage. There are some look like they're light. We can actually start going to blue here. It is in shadow and it is wet. But when I get to here, I have to go back to the sienna colors. Yellow ochre. And over here, I'm just going to put a little more burnt sienna in it and a lot of water and get that road, because I don't want it to be pure white. That might be too, we'll see. Gonna mop a little bit of that out. Now, let's have a look at our sky. Do I need to soften from places? Yeah, I need to. Some of those edges look sort of hard, so I've got a damp brush. And I'm going into that moist surface to try and soften some of those edges. Honestly, I should have done that earlier, but we're going to live with it because the focus is going to be down here. I need to get a little more of the blue into that. I'm just going to go ahead and get some cad yellow, mix into the green that I was using for the sky there, and throw in here what will be the lighter portions. Well, gosh, we could be even stronger than that, couldn't we? The light colors in that grass. That's not the color we're going to use. It's just going to be the color that the darker colors are applied on top. Which, you know what? Let's get in them now. Let's get some Prussian and some yellow ochre. And that's slow moving now. See, this is not the yellow ochre. More paint, less water. Prussian. Very damp down at the bottom, so I can wait on that. Is there someplace else I can work now? Well, yeah. I can take some of this yellowish bright green and I can start getting the bulk of that tree. I'm going to leave some sky holes for the birds to fly through and that kind of thing, which means I have to be careful, maybe even get out here on the tip. This is the lighter green in that tree area. Still a little wet there, but that's good because it'll create a soft edge. I have to try and be careful to miss my pole if I can. If not, I can recover it with something else and that transformer. Don't have to be perfect at this stage because there are darker greens going in. This is the lighter shades. So now the trees back here have a more decidedly blue cast to them, which helps them look further away, which I love that. So I'm going to get right into the cobalt. Whoa, not that much. Good grief, John. Yeah, maybe I will get into that much of it. We're just going to be further along than we thought. But I do need to get a lot of that paint off the brush because it's just too much. It's not going to give me the broken edge I need up top. I have to miss the camper. Possibly a little bit of a pole. Let a little bit of that slide in here, that's all right. That's going to get darker. I'm leaving the top. I'm going to get green on that because the light is hitting that bit. And again, this will not be the last bits we put in on this. Blue, 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 blue. Yeah. Be careful around the fence. The fence has to look straight to a degree. That could be darker, but not this dark. Rinse, squeeze, get a little bit of that in some water. There we go. Okay. I usually screw that stuff up. But the other thing is that, should I go on darker? Can we go darker? Okay, let's do this. Let's take this blue that I've got right here. Put a little bit of, it's too much. Alizarin in it, or quinacridone rose. I tried to get the excess out of it. Now, I need to rinse that brush, get all the paint out, and soften these edges. It's so important with watercolor to kind of grit your teeth. And here, let's get a, again, brush that I'm squeezing out. In the early stages, put it in a little darker than you may think it needs to be. I'm not going into the middle of my shape, I'm going to the edges to try and soften it. Let's get just a tiny bit of that. Hopefully I can draw enough attention down here to people won't say, ah, you went back in a second time. All right, okay. Now, next thing we do is go to a smaller brush. I'm gonna go to the Oriental. And gonna get kind of pretty much that same stuff I just used. And I'm gonna now while that's damp, I'm gonna get into some, no, not that dark, some burnt sienna and a lot of water, and I'm going to tip into that so that it melts and creates the look of a fence that it's been out in the weather. I even try a little bit of that in here too. Okay. Now, let's work in here. Goodness me. I'm seeing some, well, I'm going to dry it because I'm getting into where I need some texture. Oop, forgot I got to mute so you don't have to listen to that. All right. Now I can try and erase any pencil lines in areas that I would like to be very bright white. But hopefully all that's going to come out in the darker applications. So the tie-dye holy mess stage, and I'm using the roughly the same size brush, but it holds a great deal less water, so is a little bit stiffer, so it's good for working with the stiffer mixes of paint. So now I need a Balin shadow color. What would that be? Let's start with our ultramarine and some burnt sienna, but heavier on the blue. So maybe I'll go to the turquoise to, yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting colors on there, and then just as I did there and there, I'm going to be tipping in other colors while it's wet. So I'm going to do them bale at a time, sort of, and use the places where they sit on each other and have a dark mark to disguise the change. Now I'm getting some burnt sienna kind of out of the pocket there, and I'm tipping in on that. And if it's too dark, and it may be, I'm going to get some yellow ochre and do the same thing. Down the fronts of that. Alternatively, I could do the yellow ochre and then go to the burnt sienna and then go to this color. And that looks like the better, yeah, that's the better. It's always more than one way to do these things. And happily, if you're lucky, you don't find out, or it doesn't occur to you after you've done the picture. So I might get a little bit more turquoise and tip in at the top, because I'm keeping the surface relatively wet. These colors blend into each other. Now I have to be very careful in this vicinity. So I've got a breaking point here and a breaking point there, so I'm going to work on this one. So let's get into the more blues and reds, violet kind of thing, because this one is pretty much the whole deal is well shaded. It might be too much. We'll see. Ultramarine, cad red. We might put some of that in here too. And I think I need to get some burnt sienna into that. So the trick is we're trying to put like consistency colors into light consistency or a little thicker. Now over here, I need to go from a burnt sienna or yellow ochre, a greenish yellow ochre, to a kind of a blue violet, sort of. I guess it would be this one again. And then as I get to the bottom of that thing, I want to go in for the siennas. It appears to be redder at the bottom. That's probably too brown, but I'm actually kind of liking it. And there again, I have a stopping point. And this is a wet edge, and I think I want to work with that. I need a green. There. See, that's a stopping point. That's a stopping point. I am always looking for those places where I can get away that wants to be yellower back there. But it does need to be significantly darker than the road, as does this. Okay, yellow and yellow ochre, dry brushing to get some texture. There's something there that's like a clump of grass. Who knows? Well, that certainly needs to be quite yellow there. All right, now a bit of sienna down front just to warm it up. That edge is still wet, and I've been watching it. Our board is on a 45-degree angle here, which is purposeful so that when I do these things, everything's running downhill. It's not spreading out 360 degrees anywhere it wants to go. That needs to darken. It's still damp, so I can create, well, that's too damp. But, well, stick with what you were doing, John. Into that blue stuff with a little burnt sienna. Ultramarine and burnt sienna. I want to get the cast shadow that's coming out of here. Very important, I think. This is wet. I'm going to take advantage of that. Start separating my boards. Leave a little light rim on the top edge of each board if I can. Very bright area in that one, and that needs to go darker. Well, not that dark. So, rinse, squeeze, evacuate. Okay, we're starting to get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Patience is a virtue when you paint. Problem is, we just don't have it. While that's damp, I can lead out a bit of a shadow from the fence proper. Also under here. Also perhaps, not yet. In here. Well, I need to bite the bullet and do this bale here, which needs to be, looks like a sienna, kind of runny sienna. Starting with that, and then switching to this bluish shadow color. Oh, I should have left slightly light edge right along there. Let's see if we can squeezing it out. There we go. Now if I can just stay away from that area, I'll be all right. This needs to darken right there. As I get to the bottom of this, I do need to get a little darker, so more of the ultramarine burnt sienna combination while it's wet. And then I can wait a sec and play around up here. And I apologize for this stupid fly. As the water begins to soak in on these areas, I can put something on and it won't spread out as much. So it's a little drier up here, but it's a little wetter down here. And I'm kicking myself because I'm thinking, boy, if I had burnt umber, I could nail that color. There's a shadow that's a bit darker in there. And this edge towards its front is a bit darker, but I have to remember the wrap is running that way on these bottom ones. Now while that edge is wet, I'm going to go into my ultramarine, darker mix of ultramarine and burnt sienna to get the sort of cast shadow coming off of that. Which may not be the shadow coming off of that. It may actually, this may be casting that. And another bale over here we can't see is probably casting this shadow, given the time of day it is. So, okay. Careful, careful, John. Let this all work. Front edge of that. Oh, Hopefully, if that's still wet enough there, I need to lift a light front for there. And it does glisten a bit, so I feel relatively safe. If not, I can just scrub it out later. Now, where else do we need? We need some more action there. That's going to be a stiffer mix of ultramarine blue and brown, but more of the brown than the blue, so that we get a... Oh, maybe that's too dark. I know what to do. Oh, okay. Then smear them with your hand. And then supplement them. Putting a little something right there where the bale hits the ground. It's melting in, but it makes it look a little bit darker. Now, let's make some green splatter. Some yellow ochre, some Prussian, try to smear upwards, the way the grass might grow. And then maybe even suggest a few things like that. I'm even going to get some yellow, or any yellow. Getting it all over the iPad. And I do need to bring that down so that I don't have a little light colored rind at the bottom of the page. All right, I think I'm okay, and I think the bales are at the stage where I can take a mix of burnt sienna that's slow moving and one of the blues, not that much, and try to work into these slightly damp areas to create the separations between the various bales. Now, I don't want to make them hard lines. I want to go for where the junction points are. I don't want to go like that. I want to be, if I can, be careful so that in other words, the idea is you don't want to hit every inch of that connection point. What you want to do is find it and lose it. So I think I'm okay there. I think the place to go now is maybe use some of that for a little darker globs or whatever. So don't go all the way across there. Don't go all the way down here. Hopefully that's... Smear them if you need to. Well, I'm going to put a little water with that. And then... keep that front bay. Oh, that's still too much. Still too much. Well, maybe not. lift it out if it is. Now, that tree. Hi, Eric. Oh, cool. Yeah, she was in a pastel workshop that we did way back. So some of that greenish mix, I'm going to try and pull in stuff from stage left or stage right. But for that tree, I am going to need this scruffy little oriental brush, which cost like, I think $5. And I've had it for like 10 years. And now I need to make a dark green. And that's really going to be the thing that makes all of this kind of happen. So let's go for some Prussian. A blue which is already dark, so I don't have to get it like oil paint. And a little bit of cad red. Too much cad red. So more of the Prussian blue. And maybe a little bit of that Nicolazo yellow, which will turn it a dark green. Now I'll start with that. And so you get most of the paint out of the little scruffy brush. And I'm going to get up here where it's not quite as dark. Make the footprint. Now, working into it with a little more of the blue. And a tad bit of the red. And meeting up with where I just painted so that the edges hopefully melt together and get darker. If I'm lucky, if I'm very careful. No, I wasn't careful, was I? We got birds now. It's okay. Sign of a healthy environment, right? Blue. Green. Try to miss that if I can. If I can't, we'll get him back. Ultramarine and alizarin. Now this is where I need to really frame these two bales. Let's get, sounds funny, but let's get in here with some turquoise while that's wet to hopefully suggest a bit of reflected light bouncing up from the cattle yard there to the underside of these trees. Or that turquoise. Now this is turquoise mixed with this purplish blue mix. I am going to and he goes silent. I'm going to use maybe cobalt there. And I'm not getting the reflected light I want, so turquoise and a little more water in here. Okay. I'm deliberately going to leave this until I'm done here. And I may find I don't need to do as much to that as I think, because I do need it to stay behind there. I can tell I probably need to do a little something with it, but maybe not a whole lot. I'm going to get some of the, just like I was doing, feeding color into the bales, I'm going to get a little bit of that Nicolazzo yellow and feed it into this wet area here, because this tree is closer to us than that tree. And hopefully I'll get away with this. So there's more than one tree there. Now, some of that mix is going to be the start of that shadow. And it's going to be start of that shadow, and it looks like there's actually a wee bit of shadow from these. Okay, yeah. Something is coming across over here. I am going to get a bit of the, say, cobalt or turquoise and do a bit more in here, but not a lot. I want to kind of peter that out as I get down to the ground. It looks like there's a kind of a grayish shadow being cast from something across there. I do need to get underneath that camper and put some windows on it. Now, in there, that has to be dark again. So the Prussian I'm using my pinky finger as a maul stick. Okay. And the road needs to be warmed up a bit. So back to the larger Oriental brush. Preston hides the tree. I'll take that. I will take that. A little bit of sienna on that to warm it up. A little bit of sienna on the bottom of those bales. And I have to remind myself, remember, John, the wrap is running horizontally on the lower ones. Okay. I do think I need to get a little darker in there. There seems to be some business back in there. Where do we need to go? Where do we need to go? That thing there. I do need to make that pole a little bit darker, but that will need to dry. So we'll wait on that, but it needs to straighten up. Okay. A little bit more of a broken edge here. I'm going to take some cerulean and do a little bit in here. Okay. Don't get crazy with it. Don't get crazy with it. Some more yellow. To bring the foreground forward. So I'm going to glaze the foreground with this dirty cad yellow. Yep, that's sunnier. I like that. I'm happier now. And a little of that in there. I think that shadow could stand to be a titch darker. I'll use that cerulean again. Yeah, it'll look good in there too. Probably down here as well. Perhaps on that portion of the camper. Yeah, okay. And then if this is, yep, I need to tint that pole in a little bit of that transformer, and then maybe some cerulean here, some cerulean there. Okay, let's dry this, de-tape, and then we're going to go to the utility lines. Oops, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm sorry. So what I was saying there is I wanted to get some of this sienna and do some texture on the bales. Sorry about that. Okay. This is where I stop and I look and decide anything I want to change or add. Now that right there, that's a little bit of a problem. It looks like there's a weird thing along the top of the that skyhole is too big. I got to connect some of those smaller darks so that they don't look spotty. Okay, that's better. That's mo better. Maybe I will pull that pole down in front here. It's sticking out. It's a little too close to that side of the painting. And, jeez, how could I forget? I need the shadow going across the road from this tree. Oh, there we go. I mean, I live for shadows. Yeah. I'd have seen that sooner or later. Okay, that's the painting. So if you're only here for the painting, that's where we'll end it. If you want to stick around for the my version of broccoli pasta, I'm going to go do that now. Hi, Carlene.